We have seen so many NFL moves go down since the start of yesterday's free agency, either trades or signings, and I graded a bunch of the day one signings that went down yesterday. Today, we're going to talk about the day two signings and the ones that I also didn't mention in yesterday's video. So we're going to start off with the Denver Broncos, and they addressed two needs on the defensive side of the ball this offseason to bolster that unit. They signed Talanoa Hufanga from the San Francisco 49ers, a 3-year deal worth $45 million. This is going to include $20 million guaranteed. It obviously has an annual salary of $15 million. Hufanga was a 5th round pick by the San Francisco 49ers, a late round find by them back in the 2021 NFL draft. He started 17 games for them as a sophomore back in 2022 and was an all-pro that year, and then just started 10 games for them in 2023 and 7 games in 2024. The 49ers did hit on a late round safety once again in Malik Mustafa, so they weren't going to pay Hufanga big money. The 49ers have let a ton of guys go this offseason, and they've definitely felt the loss of Justin Simmons when he signed with the Atlanta Falcons last offseason. So Hufanga could give them another great player in that secondary with Riley Moss and Patrick Surtain, who just won Defensive Player of the Year. And I'm going to give them a B+ for this signing. I love this fit in Denver under Sean Payton. You are now going all in on that unit while you still have Bo Nix on that rookie contract where he's going to be making well below his market value for the next 4 seasons. I do wonder if Denver is still going to try to add a wide receiver maybe in the veteran free agency market. I'm sure they want to still get Evan Ingram. They brought him in for a visit. Maybe they land a Colston Loveland or somebody that's a playmaker on the offensive side of the ball on day one of the NFL draft. Either way, though, I think this is a very good pickup for the Denver Broncos as they're going to try to realistically go for the AFC West crown next year. And they weren't done there. They did also sign another San Francisco 49er, Dre Greenlaw, to a 3-year deal worth $35 million. It's unsure what the guaranteed money is going to be, but Greenlaw was such a vital part to that San Francisco 49ers championship team back in 2023, but unfortunately he did suffer a major injury in the Super Bowl and just didn't play a ton in 2024. So the Denver Broncos are taking a little bit of a risk. Dre Greenlaw is 27 years old. He's going to be 28 years old at the start of the season. His last full year, though, in the NFL, he played 15 games for the Niners in that 2023 season, 1.5 sacks, 120 total tackles, and was such a good linebacker duo with Fred Warner over there. He's going to be going over to a much improved Denver Broncos defensive system. I just talked about them with their secondary. Also should have mentioned Brandon Jones out there because he was a fantastic safety last year, but he's going to be in that front seven with Nick Bonito, who was a breakout star from the 2024 NFL season. I'm going to give this a B. I do think there is some risk to giving Dre Greenlaw this much money. It is still unsure how much guaranteed money there is in here. I'm assuming this is going to be a 2-year deal with an out after year number 3, but I do think you're getting a good veteran who's got Super Bowl experience to help that younger defensive unit. And the Broncos, like I said, are going for that AFC West crown next year. I do wonder if they're going to be a destination for a Keenan Allen, a Stephon Diggs, or a Cooper Kupp. All right, the Dallas Cowboys finally made some moves. They signed Javonte Williams, the former Denver Bronco, to a 1-year deal worth $3 million. Now, last year was a disaster for Javonte Williams. He came back from that ACL tear in the 2023 season, and he didn't look like what he did for Denver back in his rookie year, where he had over 900 rushing yards as a 21-year-old. Last year, he had 139 attempts, 513 yards, did have 4 touchdowns for a high-powered Denver Broncos offense, but the running game was very disappointing. If it was Javonte Williams, Estime, McLaughlin back there, everybody kind of struggled as the lead back in Denver, and you never really knew on who Denver was going to give the lead amount of carries to, but I do think there's still something left in the tank for Javonte Williams. He's still just 24 years old. I'm going to give this signing by the Dallas Cowboys a B. I think there is no risk to this deal. It's $3 million for somebody, if he can look healthy, playing with a very good quarterback and a good passing attack, he could end up being a top 20 running back in the league next year. And for just $3 million, I do believe that is worth the risk. Rico Dowdle is a free agent as well, and he may command more money in free agency. I still assume the Dallas Cowboys are going to draft a running back on day 1 or day 2, but I do think Javonte Williams gives them a nice veteran running back that could still break tackles, that could be a good complementary piece to whoever they invest in with a high draft pick this year. Next up, we have the New York Giants landing the best safety on the open market, Jevon Holland, and they signed him to a 3-year deal worth $45 million. I'm going to give this an A for the New York Giants. I think this is a home run signing for them. Now, they did unfortunately let go of Xavier McKinney last offseason. They're definitely regretting that right now, but they're going to add Jevon Holland to a bolstered secondary. They got Paulson Adebo in free agency as well, which I thought was a phenomenal pickup, and that could be also incorporated into this A. I'm excited to watch the Giants secondary next year with Drew Phillips, who was a standout rookie last year. You've got Holland and Adebo now. We'll see if Deonte Banks can do anything left in his career after being a former first-round pick, and who knows, maybe this team does add Armstead, Travis Hunter throughout the draft, and this could be one of the best secondary units in the NFL next year if these guys can reach their potential and play well as a cohesive unit, because they have a great front seven as it is. They just need to play good coverage ball just for a few seconds, and then Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and Kayvon Thibodeau can get to the quarterback. You could say last year was Jevon Holland's worst year of his career. Now, it's been an up and down career so far for Jevon Holland. He was elite as a rookie, took a little bit of a step back as a sophomore, was elite in 2023, but was somewhat disappointing in 2024. And he has been banged up a little bit over the last 2 years, but he is still just 25 years old, and I think the Giants are buying in at the right time in Jevon Holland's career. I think this signing is really going to work out for the G-men. All right, so I'm going to rattle off a bunch of Minnesota Vikings signings that they use with the money that they would have had to give Sam Darnold if they re-signed him. They signed Jonathan Allen, the former Washington Commander defensive tackle, to a 3-year deal worth $51 million. They signed Will Fries, arguably the top interior offensive lineman on the open market, to a 5-year, $88 million contract. They got former Niners, Eagles, and Steelers defensive tackle Javon Hargrave. They signed Theo Jackson, the safety, to a 2-year, $12 million deal. They re-signed Aaron Jones, 2 years, $20 million. Brought back Ryan. They signed Isaiah Rodgers from the Philadelphia Eagles. They also signed Ryan Kelly from the Indianapolis Colts to a 2-year deal worth $18 million. And they were also able to re-sign Byron Murphy to a big 3-year, $54 million deal. Yeah, the Minnesota Vikings have been one of, if not the most active team in free agency so far, and their team looks so much better with, like I said, the money they would have had to pay Sam Darnold. And now this is a very well-balanced roster for their incoming rookie quarterback, J.J. McCarthy. He's got a great wide receiver unit with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and T.J. Hawkinson. They brought back Aaron Jones, who was a phenomenal veteran running back for them last year. This offensive line is going to be improved with Ryan Kelly out there with Brian O'Neill, Christian Darrisaw, and Will Fries. This could be one of the best offensive lines in the NFC next year, but that is going to put themselves at least in some good company with the Philadelphia Eagles and the Detroit Lions. They had a lot of cornerback free agents, and bringing in Isaiah Rodgers is huge. I like the addition of Jonathan Allen on the defensive line. Maybe a little bit of an overpay, but that defensive unit is going to be fantastic with him, Harrison Phillips, Dallas Turner, who they took in the first round last year, and big free agency standouts from last year's offseason, Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel. So it's just the big X factor of JJ McCarthy. How can he look as a rookie quarterback basically in the 2025 season? Because if he can give you 80%, 70% of what Sam Darnold did last year, the Minnesota Vikings are going to be back in the playoffs, and their future is going to look so bright because McCarthy is still just 22 years old. He's incredibly young. I hope Minnesota does address running back in the draft as well, just to give a nice complementary piece to Aaron Jones in that backfield. McCarthy's going to have a much more improved offensive line from what Sam Darnold had last year. He's got one of the best offensive-minded head coaches, one of, if not the best receiver in the NFL. I'm really excited about what the Minnesota Vikings did this offseason. They're getting an A+ for me. I'm invested into this team. I think they've killed free agency so far, hitting on all the right positions. It's just really going to be the X factor of JJ McCarthy. How will he look? Can he be their franchise quarterback? Next up, I want to talk about a trade that came out of nowhere, and that was the Washington Commanders acquiring former first-round pick Laremy Tunsil from the Houston Texans with a 2025 fourth-round pick, which is pick 127, in exchange for a 2026 second-round pick, a 2026 fourth-round pick, the 79th pick in the third round this year, and the 250th pick in the 7th round this year as well. So 4 draft picks in exchange for Laremy Tunsil and a 4th-rounder this year. I'm giving this an A+ for the Washington Commanders, a team that had a banged-up offensive line last year. They did lose their best offensive lineman late in the year in Sam Cosmi, and they needed to continue to protect Jaden Daniels. And they go out and get one of the more consistent offensive tackles in the league, basically since 2018 for the Miami Dolphins and the Houston Texans. Tunsil has played 17 games in 2022, 14 games in 2023, and then started all 17 games last year and has made 3 straight Pro Bowls for the Houston Texans. He was graded out by PFF to be the 19th best offensive tackle last year, and he's still just 30 years old. We've seen great offensive linemen age well, like Teron Armstead or Trent Williams in the last few years. I think Laremy Tunsil still has a little bit left in the tank for Jaden Daniels and this Washington Commanders offense going forward. Tunsil does have a $20 million base salary this year and next year, but the Commanders still have a bunch of money to spend because of the Jaden Daniels rookie contract that they're going to have at least for the next 3 years. And I just really enjoyed what the Commanders have done, being aggressive in the trade market, getting Marshawn Lattimore, getting Deebo Samuel, and getting Laremy Tunsil this offseason to get these veteran guys who have played in big games in the playoffs before around a very young team that overachieved last year and made it to the NFC Championship game. So I think this is an A-plus trade by the Washington Commanders. I don't think they're really going to lose too much here. I think they're going to be a good team in 2026 with Jaden Daniels, so I do not think that is going to be a top 50 pick in the second round. And Adam Peters, that GM and that front office, has done an incredible job since taking over that team a few years ago. As for the Houston Texans, what are we doing? This was one of the worst offensive line units in the NFL last year. I'm giving this an F for them. I know you got some good draft capital for somebody that is making a decent amount of money, but like the Washington Commanders, you also have a quarterback under a rookie contract. You could still pay Laremy Tunsil, basically one of your few good offensive linemen, $20 million a year for the next 2 years. CJ Stroud's extension and Laremy Tunsil's current contract were never going to overlap. They traded for Christian Kirk. They signed Justin Watson and Braxton Berrios. Definitely some underwhelming receivers. I do like the pickup of Christian Kirk, but I'm not sure what this team is trying to do right now. They won a playoff game last year, which is really exciting. They did fire their offensive coordinator, Bobby Slovic, but I feel like it's been a weird few weeks for the Houston Texans. I don't really get this trade. Texans fans, you can let me know why they may have made this deal. But for a quarterback that didn't have a lot of time to throw last year, trading away his best offensive lineman for a 2026 second round pick as the premier asset going back, I don't really know if I agree with that whatsoever for Houston. So I'm giving it an F. It's maybe kind of harsh, but I just don't think you're going to be able to replace anything to the caliber of Laremy Tunsil, at least for the next 2 years while Tunsil was under that contract. Next up, we had the Carolina Panthers pay big money to add a safety, Trayvon Moehrig from the Las Vegas Raiders. This is a 3-year deal worth $51 million. And they also paid big time money to re-sign their top corner, Jevon Holland. And this is just going to make the secondary even better next year. They could definitely look to add another cornerback in free agency or get somebody throughout the draft, but they missed out on Milton Williams. We all thought he was going to Carolina, and then it changed to New England. And honestly, at that price tag, I think Carolina could be better off allocating that money somewhere else. But Moehrig had another productive year for the Las Vegas Raiders last year. He had a very productive rookie year, being the 43rd overall pick back in that 2021 draft, and then his play dropped off a little bit in year number 2, but he's been consistent. He's been a borderline top 30 safety over the last 2 years. The Panthers still have a little bit of money to spend while Bryce Young is under this rookie contract, so they're not really going to take too big of a hit paying Moehrig at least $17 million for the next 2 years. And he's still just 25 years old. He fits that timeline with Jevon Holland. I just hope they can stay healthy in 2025 because this can be a much improved secondary, and maybe they add somebody throughout the draft or in the later stages of free agency. And I'm going to give that signing for the Carolina Panthers a B+. So next up, we had Grady Jarrett, who got released by the Atlanta Falcons. He was free to sign with any team he wanted to, and he signed with the Chicago Bears to a 3-year deal worth $43 million. And this is going to include $28 million guaranteed, an average annual salary of $14.5 million. I'm going to give this signing for the Bears a B. I do think there's a little bit of risk to this because Jarrett was an absolute beast from 2017 to 2020, and it does feel like his play has been dropping off every single year since that 4-year stretch. But on a much improved defensive unit going from Atlanta to Chicago, this could be a good spot for Grady Jarrett to just kind of have a rebound year playing next to guys that they've invested in over the last few years. And the interior defensive linemen this offseason have been getting paid. Milton Williams, Jonathan Allen, Grady Jarrett. I guess it's a good time to be an interior defensive lineman because these are coming at a premium. I'm sure these teams saw what the Philadelphia Eagles did in the Super Bowl with having Jalen Carter and Milton Williams next to each other. That could just be an absolute wrecking crew on the defensive line. And Chicago has had a productive offseason. I know they've kind of been those offseason Super Bowl champions the last few years. We saw that prior to the Bears with these Cleveland Browns, but will it work out in the regular season? I do like the Bears this offseason and how they've allocated their money mostly on the defensive line and the offensive line. It's a good place to start. Next up, we have Najee Harris leaving the Pittsburgh Steelers after being a first-round pick by them back in that 2021 draft. He signs with the LA Chargers to a 1-year deal worth $5 million. This is an A+ signing, in my opinion, for the LA Chargers. Yes, they could address running back in the NFL draft still because Najee's just being under a 1-year deal. It's not locked in as a long-term contract, but Najee has just been available over the last 4 years. He hasn't missed a game in the NFL since being drafted. He could have played 68 games and he's started 68 games and even some playoff games for the Steelers as well. He's 27 years old. He's in the prime of his career, and I think this is a great pickup for a Chargers team that likes to run the ball. They've invested in the offensive line with Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt, some of the best offensive tackles in the NFL. And if they could just get a little bit better on the interior, I think Najee could have a career year under Jim Harbaugh in this run-first system, as Najee has had over 1,000 yards every year of his career. Sometimes that's because of quantity and not quality of runs, and it helps that he hasn't missed a single game. But I think this is a great pickup for the Chargers. I think Najee playing with arguably the best quarterback of his career in Justin Herbert, because when he was playing with Ben was getting a little bit washed. I think we're going to see a career year for Najee. It's technically another contract year for him, and I love this signing for the LA Chargers. Job well done by them. Next up, we have a little bit of a shocker. Daniel Jones getting $14 million by the Indianapolis Colts for 1 year. We know their GM Chris Ballard said they want to bring in another quarterback this offseason to compete with Anthony Richardson, to help light a fire under Anthony Richardson and make him even better of a quarterback going forward. Well, now he's going to have some real competition. And looking at Shane Steichen and what he likes, and that is running quarterbacks. He's had Jalen Hurts during his time as an OC in Philadelphia, Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis, and Daniel Jones is definitely a mobile quarterback. I honestly think the odds of their week 1 quarterback are probably going to be more in favor of Daniel Jones than Anthony Richardson, and Daniel Jones will be going into one of the best situations of his career, definitely the best receiving core, having guys like Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Adonai Mitchell, and Alec Pierce to throw the ball to. He had a great running back in New York with Saquon Barkley. He's going to have a great running back in Indianapolis with Jonathan Taylor. They did lose Will Fries this offseason, but they still have Quentin Nelson, Bernard Raymond, Braden Smith, some good offensive linemen. And I'm going to give this a C for the Indianapolis Colts. I actually do like the idea of bringing Daniel Jones in because he's not too much respected of a veteran where he has to be the week 1 starter, kind of like an Aaron Rodgers or a Russell Wilson, but he's not too much of a wild card like drafting somebody like Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe, or taking a chance on a Trey Lance in free agency. So I do like the idea of Daniel Jones. I just think what goes into this is Daniel Jones is going to be your week 1 starter. He's 27 years old. He has won a playoff game in his career with the New York Giants against the Minnesota Vikings, but just making Daniel Jones your week 1 starter is kind of ending the Anthony Richardson era in Indianapolis, and you spent such a high draft pick on him. You knew he was going to be a project, and I feel like they weren't as patient as they should have been when they knew they were taking him with the 4th overall pick back in that 2023 draft. And to finish off this video, I'm going to go rapid fire with some of my favorite free agency signings that I haven't really talked about. I love a Landon Roberts on a 1-year deal to the Las Vegas Raiders. They get a very good competitor and a hard hitter there at the linebacker position. James Daniels to the Miami Dolphins, a 3-year, $24 million contract. He could be an elite offensive guard for them next year. He was banged up in 2024, and they definitely felt the loss of Robert Hunt last year. I think Daniels is going to be a very good interior offensive lineman for them. The Indianapolis Colts getting Charvarius Ward, who was in such a bad situation mentally last year with the San Francisco 49ers, I think could have a career year with the Colts next year. It's only got $35 million in guaranteed money. They desperately needed to upgrade the cornerback position. That is a big get for them. Tyler Tart going to the LA Chargers and Poona Ford going to the LA Rams, I think were very good pickups. The Packers threw out some big money this offseason as well, getting Nate Hobbs, a corner, and spending big time money on Aaron Banks, an interior offensive lineman. These guards have been going for a ton. I like the Will Fries contract a little bit more, as the Packers did pay $77 million for the former San Francisco 49ers guard, but I'm glad they're trying to protect Jordan Love. I'm still surprised they haven't added a receiver. And I really like Cameron Bynum to the Colts and Jeremy Chin to the Raiders. So that is going to be it for me. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Let me know what you think of some of the free agency signings or trades that we talked about in this video. If you guys did enjoy, I would appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. We still have a bunch of more dominoes to fall. Where's Russ going? Where's Aaron Rodgers going? Who's the Steelers quarterback going to be next year? Where are the veteran receivers going? Are we going to see another trade? So make sure you're subscribed so you can be up to date on all that news, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.